Hey, what's up, guys? Yuri, thanks for joining me, man. In from Port St. Lucie
Yes, sir.
the Gold Coast,
The Treasure Coast.
Treasure Coast.
Yes, sir.
Damn,
Yes,
Gold
sir.
Coast, I think is California, right?
Possibly.
Possibly.
I don't
Okay, so Treasure Coast.
know.
Well, dude, you've been in insurance on and off for 5 years, you said, or
Since 2018, I just hit my
2018?
seventh year.
Your seventh year. Okay, cool. I started in 2017, so end of 2017, like November 17.
Okay.
So it's awesome industry. So you 7 years in the business, you've seen a little bit of everything. You've done health insurance, you've done life insurance. Have you done any other sales before, or what was your background prior to doing health insurance?
Man, I had a lot of jobs coming up. My first job was at the movie theaters at 16 years old. And the way to get hours there was who can sell the highest amount of transactions. So if you come in for a small combo,
Yeah.
I basically have to upsell you.
Yeah.
And whoever has the highest gets more hours. So that was really like my introduction to understand that I can write my own ticket in sales, because if I wanted to get paid more, I needed to work more. I just needed to sell more.
Yeah.
And then from there, just started jumping from job to job. I went to the bank for a little bit. I went into wireless for a little bit as well,
Yeah.
which really helped me in my perspective when it comes to sales. Then a couple of things happened. Grandfather passed, and I was in school going for physical therapy, and just
Did your grandparents raise you, or?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
they did. So grandma's still around. Grandpa, 2017 is when he passed. And I just had this like awakening. I'm like, what am I really doing in school? You
Yeah.
know, like it took me 5 years to get an associate, so it was just kind of slow. And then
Where'd you go to school at?
I went to Indian River in the Treasure Coast, and then I went to Boca FAU
Okay.
for
Cool.
about a year. And I was studying physical therapy, and I wasn't passionate about it. You know, I felt like I kept following like what my parents would tell me. They're immigrants from the DR, so when they come here, it's like, hey, listen, you got to go to school, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a doctor, you got to do this. You kind of buy into those things, and once that happened, I just started living for myself in a sense, and I was like, let me venture out and see what I can figure out, and started watching some sales videos. That really started putting me in like a different mindset. And I quit everything. I dropped out of school and I quit my job and started doing door-to-door sales.
What was the first door-to-door?
Selling cable
Okay.
for Comcast.
Got it.
So it was an easy transition because the AT&T was the wireless. I don't know if we could say names, so
Yeah,
you
that's
got to
fine,
cut
I
things
think.
out.
Yeah. I don't think anyone watches this enough for AT&T to sue me.
Okay.
But if they do, we've made it. We're good.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. It was an easy transition for me. So it wasn't hard. I've been, blessed to kind of understand sales a little bit. And I never really studied sales books or anything like that. It was like, it just came naturally to me because I knew that I could write my own ticket. I wanted to make money. So I did that, and I just did it pretty well, but then started to uncover, a lot of bad habits within myself and that.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people I've talked to have done door-to-door sales that have done sales and then did well in insurance. Like door-to-door is one a lot of people have done before, and then wireless is another one that we've on the 20 some or 30 some episodes of this we've done. I'm like, dude, there's got to be 6 or 7 people that have done wireless sales at some point.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's a good filter for insurance sales? I think I don't know why exactly. Why do you think it was a good like prerequisite for you?
So you touched on something earlier that I always talk about, right?
Yeah.
When I worked at AT&T, like the biggest thing was that the more products that they can have under one roof, the harder it is for them to cancel.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of that was like teaching us how do we extract more from somebody who's just coming in to upgrade their phone. Because you're really like the comp schedule when I was there, like I was part-time. Like I never worked a full-time job for anybody. I hate full-time jobs.
Got it.
But I was a part-timer making more than the full-timers just because of the comp schedule. And what it was so this person comes in through the door, you want to do an upgrade, and I see that you're eligible for TV, internet, home phone, whatever the case is. Now I can start, having the conversation with you and identifying your needs.
Yeah.
And I feel like that translates a lot into like any sale, because sales is for me not so much like trying to persuade you to do something, but more so like what need can I identify that I can fill in for you.
Yeah.
And insurance is a replica of that, because they're actually asking for help for their needs.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Like I think it was if if people have more than 2 policies with an agent, the persistency goes up by like 20%, like substantially goes up. And for people who don't know persistency, that's like how many policies get on the books and stay on the books. And I think a lot of people, we did a sales training with a big group 2 days ago, and you talked a lot about like how you like to get both spouses on you get the spouse on the phone.
Yeah.
And it confused a lot of people because they're like, oh, but what if you lose a sale? But you're like, I want more to stay on I think the reason you did it is because you want more to stay on the books.
100%.
And a lot of people, like we were talking just before this, like, do you slow down and do you ask about their kids and their grandkids, and do you ask for referrals, and do you do all these things that can not only make you more sales, but also like they see you more as a professional if you do all that stuff, 100%. Right? Like, hey, do you care if I educate your daughter about X, Y, Z, or your grandkids about how to set up, college savings plans that are tax-free they could use for college or for starting or whatever.
100%.
And getting good at asking those questions. Why do you think a lot of insurance agents are scared to slow down enough to dig a little deeper and get referrals, sell multiple products, and be a more well-rounded agent as opposed to just like a fly-by-night, salesperson?
I think they're just looking to make a quick money, basically, I would say. A lot of them are also scared, I would say, because they feel like, I just got the sale, I got to close this, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not actually taking the opportunity to dig in and see how they can be efficient with them, So I think that's a really big thing. And I'm a big proponent, and I harp on that, I feel like maybe if I just, like, put out deals, and didn't focus on any of that, I might write more, but then I might have more fall off, and I don't want that,
Yeah. I think a lot of companies push people to just write more because more is good for the company and for the manager, for all that sort of stuff. And like I do believe you should buy a lot of leads and like you can do a lot with numbers. But like I think the reason we are a little bit different is we try to focus on how we make the agent more profitable. And like these little couple things can like take you from where your net is 40% to 70% or whatever. And I don't think people slow down to talk to their agents about like, okay, like you're selling a lot, like how do we make you more profitable?
Yes.
Because a lot of the managers don't care. They're like, I make the same amount whether you're more profitable or less profitable. So who cares?
Right. Right. And that's huge because I always talk about like your percentages increase. So if one lead, if you have a 10% chance of closing 40 leads, that's 4 deals, but I have the spouse on the phone, and out of those 4, I can get 2 more spouses.
Yeah.
I've increased my profitability and then also decreased my cost per acquisition because I'm getting more from my investment.
Dude, when I was an agent, I used to, every single time anyone had a kid or a grandkid, I would always write them a children's whole life policy. I'd be like, oh, you want to get a policy on your grandkid?
Yeah.
And then I learned about IULs, and I wrote everyone's kids an IUL.
Yeah.
And what I realized was, and now you're a parent, you have a 7 and a 4-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Now, I thought this would be true, but now I know it's true. Like, people care about their kids way more than they care about themselves.
100%.
And their kids being in a good position. So, like, that's an easy sale that people skip over all the time. And I think when you're a parent, you get it. You're like, oh, yeah, if someone wanted me to do this for my kids, they'd be set up by the time they retired. Like, I would do it all day long.
100%.
But I think people skip over that a lot because either they don't have kids or they don't slow down enough.
Exactly. Yep.
So you did wireless sales and then health insurance from there?
I went from wireless, then I went to door-to-door.
Okay.
I did door-to-door doing cable, which I did decent at. I learned a lot about myself as an individual where I had to do a lot of self-growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I went
In what way? Like, what did you have to do?
So, for example, because I was very skilled at what I did. So I would make, let's say, $1,500 in a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say if I start going to the field at 12, then I go at 1, then 2, then 3. Then before you know it, I get to the field at 6 o'clock, and I'm trying to get a deal 2 hours of sunlight.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, I'm like not making money I went 5 weeks one time without making money. Literally.
Because you were relying on your talent.
Relying on my talent alone, and I was being lazy, and I wasn't showing up when I needed to show up.
Yeah. Dude, I was terrible at sales when I started. And I actually, if people ask me, I'm like, I think it's better to suck at sales because you have to develop good habits to make money. And I've never asked anyone this who's good, but you're a naturally charismatic person and you're good at sales. How did you get out of that, like, because you could go out and not work that hard to make sales.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were both new, I'd probably have to work 3 times as hard as you to make the same amount of sales.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get past that and evolve to now where you're doing well, where you're able to like get yourself out of that, like just relying on talent and being more disciplined?
Definitely not relying on my talent. It was a journey, bro. It was probably the hardest point that I've ever been in my life because my son literally was just born.
Okay.
And I was selling 2 to 3 cable deals a day.
Okay.
2 to 3 cable deals a day. you're making 1,500, maybe $2,000 in a week, right?
Okay.
It takes like 3 weeks for you to get paid though. And then I discovered about alarms. Alarms was paying at the time like $750 per deal. So
Okay.
in my mind, I'm like, holy, crap, shit, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can curse.
Yeah,
it,
whatever. I don't care.
If I can do 2 to 3 of these a day, I can do the same thing with alarms.
Yeah.
And what I realized with alarms, it's a totally different sale. Because if I come to your door and you have cable right now, that's something that you have that you're gonna live with for the rest of your life, basically. So like all I have to do is see your bill and save you money.
Mm-hmm.
Alarm is one of those things where like you have to figure out ways to create needs, and they didn't even ask for that.
Yeah.
So I went from selling 2 to 3 deals a day to selling 1 a week. And for me, I've been fortunate where, just blessed in what I'm able to do, and like winning, whether it's sports, whatever it is. And it was like the first time in my life where I had this major losing streak. So like, losing is a habit.
Yeah.
Right. And what ends up happening is like you lose enough, you expect to lose more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest thing. So I had to start fixing my mindset.
Okay.
And just learned a lot of things about like, and this is the same principle I applied today that I applied to health insurance and now, is when I knock on this person's door, I was focused on the dollar amount of what I'm going to make on the deal versus helping them.
Yeah.
And Mamba mentality, Kobe Bryant talks about, don't go into a game dying to win. Don't go to a game scared to lose. Go into a game learning to learn what I can learn from this game.
Yeah.
I knocked on every door looking to learn what I can learn from my client.
Yeah.
And that's how I got better. So I still sucked at it because it was like just phasing out. But when I got to health insurance, sucked terribly too. It's like I was really good at jobs, but man, I sucked terrible. It took me like 2 months to get it. Mm-hmm. But I started to apply those principles, and then I started to retrain my mind, and then eventually it clicked.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
I think that's important what you said is a lot of people like want to skip till the end, like skip to the very end. I'm like, dude, the journey is the fun part though. Like going through stuff and like failing, succeeding. Like we talked about this earlier. Like someone's like, "Well, are you scared to fail?" I'm like, dude, I like failing because I can figure out what to do better next time. It's like a big game to me.
Yeah, same.
It's like, okay, like I screwed up. Like now, what can I do next time? It's like a video. Like how do I get past this level?
Exactly. I used to love playing video games.
Yeah.
So I adopted the same mentality, and I remember there was times where like things got really dark, and I would have to tell myself like if I looked at my story, my book, like my book can't be done right now. Like this cannot be the last chapter.
Dude, one of my favorite like sayings is like, don't take life so seriously that no one gets out alive.
Right.
And it's like I take every like moment seriously, but like don't put too much pressure on where you're at.
Yes.
And if something goes wrong, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And one thing one of my mentors taught me a while ago is like, all right, like something bad happened to you. Like zoom out like 5 years. You think you're still gonna care about it in 5 years? It's like, no, then why do you care about it now?
Right.
Like move on.
Yeah.
Like if it's a really bad thing, you still will think about in 5 years, but like think about how major something would have to be for you to still think about it in 5 years from now.
Right.
Like it had to be like my mom had cancer when I was a kid. Like I still remember that. That sucked. She lived, but it sucked. And like your grandpa died. Like you remember that 5 years later.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't remember the client that said no or the agent that quit. You're like, who cares? It was 5 years ago. It's not a big deal,
Yeah.
So okay, so you did health insurance. You kind of got that figured out. What led you into the life insurance space, and why was that appealing?
It was by complete accident.
Okay.
I was like we were talking about earlier. I thought that I was kind of like there. I bought into this whole, you worked your 5 years, you never have to work again. Was able to build a team from nothing and really build it up and do something great with it. Decided to take my residuals and just sit at home, chill with the family, not really do much. And I realized like being at home, like I really lost like purpose. I enjoyed the leadership aspect. I enjoy and love sales, and I was kind of like looking into different industries, and just through a friend of a friend, I started to see what life insurance was doing. And I couldn't believe, I honestly couldn't believe that, the money was there. Because to me, it was like, we got to work extremely hard in health insurance to even make 10 grand in a week. Where like my first week I made like 8.
Yeah.
Working from home, like where I felt like I wasn't working. It was just mind blowing for me. So, a lot of things happened between then, but once I repurposed myself and I realized like, okay, I'm ready for a career. When I quit my job that I went to go door to door, I set out on a mission to actually become a business owner. Yeah. I wanted to learn what it meant to be a business owner. Read a lot of books about it. I actually started a mobile detailing car wash as well while I was doing all that. And as I wanted to learn about the process, things got extremely difficult and almost gave up on everything. So I've reinvigorated myself with that original idea that I had about being a business owner, and I feel like I have like the best opportunity here to do that.
Dude, I remember the most depressed I've ever been in my life was right after I sold my company to Integrity.
Wow.
I thought I was so disappointed because I thought I was gonna feel like a weight lift off my shoulder and like really happy, and I wasn't at all.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the money and I'm grateful for everything that they've done and how it changed my family's financial life. But like, and I was like, logically, I was very happy with that. I knew my family was taken care of forever.
Yeah.
But I was not happy at all. Yeah. And I didn't feel good again until I just got back to doing the exact same thing I was doing before and just started rolling again.
Yeah.
And I think there's your point about like, people always, it's weird. People have this goal like, oh, I want to work and then retire when I'm 30 or 35 or 40. And I'm almost 30 now. And I'm like, now I look at it and I'm like, I think the way people should look at it, I'd love your thoughts. Like, I don't have to work if I don't want to, but I get to do whatever I want to do when I'm 30, you know? But I think that maybe men, maybe women too, but I think men especially have to work to have purpose.
1,000%.
And if you don't, you feel like you don't feel good about yourself. Like, if you took away my ability to provide for my family and take care of my loved ones and do things for the people I love in my life, dude, I don't think I'd have anything to live for. Like, and I know it sounds dramatic, but I think that's true.
Yeah. Bro, I mean, I feel like from the beginning of time, right? Like, if you have to go hunt and kill a lion, I'm not gonna send my wife out there to do that.
No,
I'd rather go wrestle with the lion, and I'm gonna have fun with it. You know, because it's gonna be a challenge. You know, I like to continue to be challenged, and I feel like life is a series of that. And what ends up happening is there's gonna be other that come after us that we're able to counsel to them. Yeah. You know, but if I'm not putting myself in uncomfortable situations and actually learning, I'll never be able to reach that level of being able to mentor others to come up as well too. Yeah. There's a lot of things, you know, that I'm working on currently.
What are the biggest things, like how have you changed the most since you started doing sales? Like you have to self-develop in sales.
100%.
And people I think sometimes use it as a crutch, but I think it's like a tool that you use while you're working and not something you do instead of working, but it's important to self-develop. Otherwise you just can grind forever and never get better.
100%.
Where are the biggest areas you think you've changed just from like being in business for yourself? Like you mentioned, you were like unmotivated for a while because you had enough money. So where do you feel better as a man? Or like what's your biggest couple of things you've changed where you feel better about yourself now?
Mindset.
Yeah?
Yeah, mindset and distractions.
Got it.
So our mind is our number one asset, right? So before I can go and like work out, go to the gym, or even get in my car, like my brain has to tell my body to do that. But if my brain is being clouded with social media, television, the news, and all this other stuff that's happening, then that's going to cripple my ability to move forward. Yeah. You know, so that's the number one thing that I did from the very beginning, even when I started my journey back in 2017, 2018, was like cultivate my mind. But when I got too comfortable, I stopped doing that. You know, I started doom scrolling and just like not focus on growth. Yeah. You know, like we never can stop growing as human beings, I would say, because if you're not growing, you're going backwards. You know, we always have something to offer. So once I realized that, I immediately, what ended up happening is like, you know, these motivational videos, like they sound kind of cliche, like, oh, I keep hearing this stuff all the time, but like we're programming ourselves to be successful, you know, and that's the number one thing that I did. Second thing that I did was take care of my body, you know, like sugar, keep it to a very bare minimum. Like my friends think I'm crazy because I love black coffee. Yeah. But like I don't put nothing in my coffee because the sugar just causes you to crash. It gives you brain fog, doesn't allow you to take care of yourself. You know, certain like dyes in the food and stuff, you know, making sure that we're bypassing that. So, and then I eat a very regimented schedule. Yeah. You know, like those two things are the most important things because this is the body, the temple. So if it's not in good shape, I can't do anything.
What do you, and I agree with all that. When I was selling like 60, 70 grand a month in the field, like I weigh right at 205 now. And I got up to 247 and I don't carry 247 well. I was fat as hell.
Word,
but it was funny though, at that time, like it wasn't a priority to me because I was in like survival mode. Same. And I think there's different phases. Like it's okay for a while. If you have to choose one, like you can sacrifice your health for a little bit if you have to fight through something. You know? And then you can but you can buy time back later. And then you do both and you learn how to be balanced, right? Yeah. But I remember that I was like, dude, I might get a little fat, but I'm going to grind like crazy now. And then I'll figure that out later. Yeah. If you have to choose one. Now that we're doing virtual sales though, you don't have to, dude, when I was traveling all over the place to sell insurance, like getting on planes or leaving the house at 7 in the morning, getting home at 9 PM, like I didn't have time to go to the gym really as much and take care of my body the same way. So I think it's cool now that we have virtual sales where people can really live a much more balanced life.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And that's the double-edged sword, because you can be too comfortable with virtual and then wake up late and not make it in time for what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
I'm someone the other day, one of our guys, Jake, was like, I don't know if I would have done this in the field. He was like, I don't know how you did it. I'm like, dude, I'm glad, because it taught me how to be really disciplined and really good with my time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going house to house to house, flying over the place, managing stuff. It forces, and then if you can keep that same energy when things get easier, that's how you become really good, right?
Yeah.
What
absolutely.
you have a 7-year-old. What are your kids' names? Your 7-year-old is
Elias,
okay, and then 4-year-old is
Emmanuel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Do you know the third one, boy or girl, or
It's
no?
a boy.
So 3 boys.
3 boys. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna have any more kids, or no? Are you done at 3?
I don't know.
Got it.
You know, depends.
Yeah. My wife asked me the other day. She was like, "You want a third one?" I'm like, we keep going back and forth. So we have a 6-month-old.
Yeah.
That's amazing. At 6 months, you're like, she's like, one day she'll want another one. And I'm like, yo, stay over there.
Yeah.
And then one day I'll want one. She's like, dude, no.
Yeah.
So, but I think we'll end up having more. How? Like 2 questions. How has having kids like changed the way you kind of view everything? And then 2, how do you manage time where you're selling 50, 60 grand a month? You have a big agency that's growing. You have your wife, your kids. Like, how do you make sure that you can do it all?
That's a great question, and it's something that I never feel like I'm doing a good job at.
Yeah.
Just so you know. So
it's hard.
It is hard, and it's something that I battle with consistently. And honestly, like, major shout out to my wife, who's a big supporter of me. You know, because she's been supporting me throughout the whole process, and she didn't really understand like the work, right? We've been able to do pretty good things. You know, we've been able to invest in real estate. We've been able to invest in life insurance and all these other investments. So she sees that I'm not just out there and like, we're broke, you know? She doesn't, like, but she went to convention this year, and she saw that like all the other men with kids were going through the same thing that I'm going through. Yeah. And like her support just went through the roof with it, you know? So I give her a major shout out, because without her, I wouldn't be able to do it, to be honest, you know? Yeah. And for me, I'm always looking to try to balance things out. What I do now is like I make sure that I dedicate the weekends to them. Yeah. Like we're big on like, we have annual passes to go to Universal. We love going to like different resorts every weekend. So like I make sure I dedicate the time to them to be able to do that, you know? But it's still something I'm still learning to do. Yeah. The thing about me is like I have a very consistent schedule and like non-negotiables. And you mentioned that's literally what I talked about this morning. Like, so these non-negotiable schedules have to be done before I can enjoy anything else. So being able to do it within the week, it allows me to like guilt-free spend time with the family, knowing that I've done what I needed to do.
And it's such a good example for your kids to see, like, I could be at home all the time, but I've said I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to do it because I said I'm going to do it.
100%.
Like, that's the example I wanted. Someone asked me, like, oh, do you want to leave, like, a big legacy, like money for your kids, all this stuff? I'm like, I don't care about that as much, but I want to teach them, like, the right way to live and think about stuff. And it's like, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. You know, your word means everything. Like, you follow through. You're a productive member of society. You treat people well. And I think everything you're talking about is, like, a good example for your kids where it's like, yeah, I could be home at 5 to hang out with you, but I said I was going to do this, and I haven't done it yet. So now I have to wait till 7 o'clock.
100%.
You know, 100%. And I think that's in my mind, that's what I want my kids to see growing up. Not like, oh, you have this money. And like, that stuff doesn't matter. It's like, what does it take to get the money?
Yes.
And what principles do you live by?
Exactly, 1,000%. And that's my number one thing, because I want them to understand, like, character. Yeah. You know, like, I think it's really easy to, like, I went to school in Boca, right? And you see, like, a lot of spoiled kids. And that to me was like, man, like, I still, like, my grandma still lives in the same house that I was born. Yeah. You know, we go visit her, and my son sees, you know, he's older, so he understands, like, this is not like mommy and daddy's house or mommy and daddy's neighborhood, you know? Like, why are there people in the street, you know? So, like, seeing those things, like, I feel like you're one decision away from just not being productive, you know? So, like, for them to be able to see my productivity, it allows them to, like, subconsciously have that ingrained in them. So when it's their turn, they're ready. There's no excuses.
Dude, growing up, my dad's a doctor, and he worked really hard. And I remember always, like, the best thing he ever did, he never was the type to, like, sit down and go through anything with me ever. Like, he wasn't like, hey, this is what you do, this is how you think, never talked about anything. Right. He was very stoic. But, dude, I got to watch him wake up at, like, 5 a.m. every day, leave the house by 5:30, get home at 7 p.m., work weekends, have his own practice. Yeah. So I wasn't confused what it took to make money. And I think like we were talking about, kind of joking, like Miami and Tampa's like the epicenter of like, I'm a douchebag with enough money to like lease a car, you know, or like rent a car for a night, you know. It's like you probably financed your belt buckle because you're so damn broke for real. But like I got to see what it takes to actually make money. And he made a couple $100,000. He did well for himself, but I saw how many hours he worked a week too. So I was never confused.
Right.
You know, and I think sometimes people that didn't grow up like with that, I'm just so fortunate to have had that, because people didn't grow up with it thinking you can just get rich overnight.
Right.
And I always had the perspective. I was like, I expected it to be hard because I watched how hard my dad worked all the time. You know. I think that's what your kids will see too. So.
Amen. Yeah.
What's one tip for sales and recruiting you give everyone to wrap with? You know, to make if everyone's looking to start building a business, start selling more. What's one thing on each you'd give them to help them be better?
I would say create non-negotiables within yourself. Like your foundation is going to be your schedule.
Yeah.
You know, any job that you work, like somebody's going to make a schedule for you. So creating a non-negotiable schedule for yourself that you can follow, that allows you to be successful in what you're looking to do, and sticking by it no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And that would be number one. And in terms of like building, like right now everything is organic that we're doing. We haven't even started getting into like paid reach or anything of that nature, which I'm excited for, you know, once we can handle the capacity. But organically is like, you want to share the opportunity with other people.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not just as if we, you know, bring individuals on just to make money. It's like, no, we're actually looking to change people's lives.
Yeah.
You know, like I could be the reason why somebody's whole family bloodline changes just because, you know, I was chosen to be a good example.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, I think those things are very important for anybody that's looking to do it. It's like, you know, lead by example, lead by the front, do the right thing, be non-negotiable with yourself, and it'll help others grow and be successful as well, and share the opportunity.
Yeah.
There's people out there that don't know what to do. They're working a job, working $30,000, $40,000 a year. You can make that here in a month.
Yeah.
You know? So it's important.
I think about that a lot. I'm like, I want to be the 22-year-old version of myself, which was like an alcoholic with some addiction issues and some self-esteem issues for sure, that like didn't know what he wanted to do in life and like was very confused about like, do I want to ever get married? Do I want to have kids? Like I just had like my self-image was all jacked up, you know?
Yeah.
Like that version of me needed someone to like mentor them and bring them out of that, and then something productive to do. And so I never wanted to not share it with everybody, because I'm like, how many people, I needed that bad, and it changed my life way more than financially. So I think if you're not sharing with people, like who cares if someone says no? Like the upside is that you change someone's life.
Right.
And it probably saved my life in a lot of ways, you know? So I think that I always think about that. And people are like, I don't know if I want to recruit. What if someone says no? I'm like, dude, what if you save someone's life? Or what if you help someone like change their kids and their family's lives? Like that's way more the upside than someone saying like, oh, you run like a MLM or something. You're like, okay, whatever. Who gives a shit?
Hey, people are going to talk no matter what.
Yeah. So awesome, man. Well, hey, this is great. Thanks for coming in, dude. And appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a
Absolutely.
pleasure.